interest in studying sculpture. I show my artwork on Newbury Street. I had a show at the ICA, Institute of Contemporary Art. And I was in Stockholm, actually, somewhat recently for an artist residency. But I also work as a strategist. I learned kind of on the job at the innovation consulting firm named Continuum, which is sort of next door in Newton. And there I worked for a lot of Fortune 500 companies, sort of helping them figure out what's next for their organizations, whether it's a new product, a new service, maybe a new business altogether. And when I left Continuum, I kind of co-founded a startup called New Art Love, and I was lucky enough to be part of the Mass Challenge community, which was an incredible experience. And that organization, that little startup focused on kind of connecting artists and art lovers, sort of using technology and leveraging kind of the sort of time-honored tradition of visiting artist studios. So how do you kind of enable that experience and make it more productive and rich? But currently, I kind of split my time between art making and independent consulting. And so I've done a lot of work, luckily enough to work with Ella, and actually a couple people here in the room in the education space, working with Jewish day schools in the greater New York area, helping figure out, how can you work with educators in coaching and workshop formats to help them become more innovative in a more grassroots kind of way throughout their organizations. And then also in Chicago and with the Brandeis high school programs as well. So, needless to say, there's not really a really straight path there, and there's a lot of different moving parts and pieces in my kind of work life. But on encouragement from Stephen, I decided, I'm just going to share really 5 stories, a little storytelling hour here, 5 experiences from my childhood that I think are sort of exemplify elements that have really shaped how I live and how I work. Or how I approach those both. And kind of all together, they cover the Lao language, sailing, hurricanes, paper routes, and ballet. So I'll start with my first. So my first story, I confess, is actually secondhand. My parents tell me this one. We kind of moved to Bangkok, Thailand, right after I was born. And my parents were always really excited, and still are, to be exposed to the world around them, and I kind of got a lot of that exposure as well. And so when we moved there, my 2 younger siblings were born there. We traveled all around. We befriended locals. We lived in kind of the local area, not the expat area. We ate local foods. And one day when I was maybe 4 or 5, I was running around the house, and a visitor, one of my friends, my parents' friends who was Thai, was there, and they were both remarking on how I wasn't speaking English, and kind of running around with one of the kind of neighborhood friends that I had made. And the visitor said, actually, no, I wasn't speaking Thai, I was speaking Lao. And my parents didn't know Lao. My parents had kind of knew a little bit of Thai, and they certainly didn't put me into any program to learn Lao. This was just something that I had kind of picked up from wanting to connect with the children that I was playing with. So, when I returned to Cape Cod at age 6, my sense of the world and my sense of myself was actually really expansive. I was a girl who spoke Lao. And my world included mango trees and really skinny cows and crowded buses, and at 6 I sort of embraced the identity of a world traveler. So my second story is a little bit similar. So when I entered the 2nd grade, I was no longer living in Bangkok. We were no longer living on Cape Cod either. We were actually living, a family of 5, on a relatively small 26-foot sailboat, and in Key West. And so in the morning, I would unstrap my bike from the boat, and I would lifted onto the shrimp dock, which was where, sort of our version of the cul-de-sac. And I would bike to school, and that was sort of, I lived on a boat. Everybody else lived in a house, and I lived on a boat. And we showered in the hose on the dock. And every now and then we'd sneak into like the yacht club, fancy yacht club nearby, and like get a hot shower. But when summer came, we kind of took to the sea and headed back up north, and we really took our time. We took the whole summer. We stopped at ports along the way, and we caught fish for dinner off the back of the boat. We grew sprouts in paper cups. We all worked very diligently on an extremely long, rhyming, epic poem that I remember being like our major work. And there was always this kind of love of adventure in my family, and a sense of fearlessness, something that has obviously come out. And there was a real love of being different, of not being like everybody else, of kind of inventing our own way of living that maybe was just a little bit better. So sort of a pride in being different.